Welcome to the Reach the Stars podcast, a collection of conversations with cool people who do cool things. Brought to you by Papercraft Miracles. Each week, we'll bring you inspiring stories of persistence, passion, and purpose. With your host, Jonna Willoughby Lohr.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reach the Stars podcast. I am your host, Jonna Willoughby Lohr. And today we have Nancy Eckerson, and she is the coolest. I know I probably say that every episode, but she's the coolest. She does so many things. I think my first inclination of meeting her, she was helping people to write letters about things that they were not really able to write about themselves. And I just thought that was so cool to be able to use your intuition to speak through other people for other people, and I just love that. But she also is a psychic conduit, which is the reason that I'm a little insane today, because I talked her entire ear off and picked all of her psychic brains earlier today. And she also is a spiritual coach and helps people uncover their true passions and their reason for choosing to be here at this time. So there's all sorts of things that Nancy has in store for us today. So I am going to let her take it away and tell you a little bit more about your history and your background. So tell us about yourself.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jonna, for having me on your podcast. I'm honored to be here. And I guess we were talking earlier, and I did want to say that I've had 20 years of directing this career of mine in a very different way, because I started my career life as a teacher. I taught foreign languages, Italian and Spanish, which many people don't have any idea I ever did that. I wanted to be a UN ambassador, but I never quite got that part done. But I did teach in a junior high school for several years before I had my children. Then I had married a gentleman who was in business, so I moved into the business world for the first time in my life, because I came from a teaching family and teaching was the whole existence. So I moved into the business world and helped him while I was raising my kids. I helped him we had delis on Long Island. Mm-hmm. Delis, a liquor store, 7-Up routes, all kinds of things in a massive family business. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what I did for the first part of my life. And then we moved back up here. And I was supposed to go back and get my teaching master's and be able to teach certified anywhere here I wanted in New York. But my ex wanted to have a restaurant. So he asked if I would just stay and help him open a restaurant, give him 2 years. And I said, okay. So 10 years later, there I was, still in the restaurant, hadn't done my teaching degree. And sadly, we ended up in divorce. So when that happened, I all of a sudden had no career, nothing. I didn't have any idea what in the world I was supposed to do, but I knew one of the things I always wanted to do was be a writer. So the day I was leaving the business, a woman came in. She needed something from the restaurant. So I helped her with that. It was my last day of work. And she said, by the way, I happen to be a writing teacher. And I said, well, that's amazing that you're telling me that, because that's the one thing I want to head into doing. And she was astounded. She says, you got to be kidding me. So I went and took a class from her on how to get published. And through her, I became, I don't know, I didn't even know. I can't even tell you how many places I've written for, but I started writing for magazines, mm-hmm. newspapers. Then I went into international magazines. I've written for a British magazine, and I've written for several others. And then I started writing short stories that went into anthologies like Chicken Soup for the Soul, or there were any number of anthologies that I was putting my stories into. And I would recollect times working in the family business, and I was at a meeting of a women business group that I belonged to, and the speaker was there talking about a family business center in one of the universities locally. And I started thinking about our family business and how it busted up, and it was so sad. And if things had been written down, it might have been different. So my path now went this way, and it's kind of like my path just keeps getting directed all over the place.
Mhm.
I just keep following.
I hear that.
So I decided to start something where I would help businesses document their successes and failures and the wisdom they gained, starting with the founding fathers through every generation. And I've actually done them with 6 generation businesses and 5 and a 3 and a 4 and several like that. So I would do interviews, and it would take 2 to 3 years to do this because you're interviewing hundreds of people in
Mhm.
order to get them into the book. And it was a real experience. And I'm kind of doing something similar now. I am helping people write. Particularly, I feel so much for the people who are losing their businesses because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
So I'm going to help them write kind of a memoriam about their business so that as they move into the next phase or next stage of their life, they'll have all that wisdom documented of what they did right, what happened. Of course, you can't say someone did something wrong because the pandemic just sort of slew a lot of things, you know?
Yeah, there's only so much you can do.
Yes, exactly. So this is an important time for them, and it's important if you're going to continue on in your business to write down and document what you went through,
Mhm.
as well as everything you went through before the pandemic. So I'm still in the writing realm, and that's it's a great love of mine. I'm still doing things like you had said, where I help. I'm kind of like a Cyrano de Bergerac, a modern version, and I'm helping people connect with their hearts so that they can write condolence letters, love letters, romance, whatever they need to write to get it from the heart. So that, though, all coincided with 20 years ago, I started doing meditation. I joined a meditation group. I became absolutely zeroed in on the fact that I wanted a personal relationship with my higher self. I wanted to know that source. I wanted to know and understand that source. I didn't want to be told that this is what, you know, I say God because that's the way I grew up. I didn't want someone telling me what the higher source was.
Mhm.
I wanted to meet the higher source myself and understand and really feel as though I'm doing my part to do something just amazingly, incredibly desired by God. I wanted to be like God's right hand man, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
And so I thought the only way to do that is to get to meet. You got to really understand and develop your own personal relationship. So I found my key to that was starting meditation. And who knew that I was going to end up 8 years later, after a huge long program of this particular church with a guru that was wonderful, I ended up an ordained minister. And I was thrilled and excited and still felt as though I was only partway there because I feel like you never finish learning about this incredible creator of this universe, you know?
I know, right? We're always only part-time there until we're like not in this body
Yeah,
anymore, and then you're part-time there the other way.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So
Mhm.
I started having these magnificent experiences alongside all the difficulties in my life. I mean, I here I was facing a huge divorce. Slightly after that time, my daughter was diagnosed with MS. She was 30 at the time. They said she'd had it about 10 years before she was diagnosed. And it was a really hard blow for her, for all of us. I mean, this is a kid who hitchhiked cross country to go to Oregon, and she was a songwriter. She just did everything. She was a magnificent person. And all of a sudden now she wasn't able to walk and she couldn't drive, and eventually now she is bedridden at this point. She's now 43. So there's been a lot of challenges with that.
Mhm.
I was challenged by taking care of my dad for the last 6 years of his life after heart attacks and strokes and all different kinds of things started happening with him. And I didn't realize it at the time when I was going through all these things and also helping my son who had some problems, that these were the gifts that I'd been given. I'd been given all these gifts to help these people that I loved so much so that I could learn the kind of compassion I needed. I had to open my heart more and more and more in order to be able to really understand that the true joy in life is service, and service is the true joy of life.
Mhm.
That is where I'm at this point. The things I do because I want to treat every one of the creator's beings in a really honorable way. Try to be authentic. I try, and I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means because I can throw an F bomb like the rest of them, and I'm just, I am what I am. But I am absolutely thrilled to be doing spiritual coaching now and to be working with people, trying to help them stay connected to their guides, stay connected to their teachers, um, get their own personal relationship going with their higher self. Now, you can use any term you want for that: higher self, true source, God, Emmanuel, whatever form of word you want to use is totally fine.
Mhm.
But like I said, I use God because that's what I grew up with. That was my term. And sometimes I just say Mother, Father, God, because who knows?
Mhm.
You don't know.
Yeah.
But the spiritual coaching I do is it's probably the newest thing that I'm doing, and I got that through meditation. That I was now supposed to be combining my spiritual journey and my reverendship with my professional writing, and combining the two into the spiritual coaching because I use journaling. I wrote down all the tools I'm using to do the spiritual coaching. I use journaling. I use the psychic readings that I do. I help people with those. I use EFT. Did you ever hear of EFT? It's tapping, where you're tapping on the meridians,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
like this.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so I teach people EFT in order for them to use it. We talk about crystals and the use of those, and one of the key components to my coaching is journaling. I
Mhm.
work with people on journaling so that they can start getting these feelings to come out of them. I also teach meditation during that time. I encourage people to learn Ho'oponopono. I am the highest ranking Reiki master, so I'll do Reiki treatments on the people that I'm working with. And I'm, in general, just listening constantly for where it is I'm supposed to go next. I know that I know and I believe with all of my heart that people are brought to me on purpose because I've been through the kinds of things that will serve them well. And so, I mean, even I think I told you before that one day after the divorce, and I was on my own, and I had just lost my dad, who was my best friend in the whole world. I was diagnosed with cancer. I was diagnosed with lung cancer. And it was far enough along that they said the only way that they could even begin to think of helping me is if they gave me um, chemo and radiation, but it had to be done simultaneously. And I had to go for radiation in the morning, chemo all afternoon, and then radiation in the evening. So that's how I spent my days for months.
Oh, God.
And it was devastating the first 3 days. Devastating. And I heard so many people telling me that, you're going to have to kill this thing. You're going to have to beat the crap out of it. Oh my God, you're going to have to send that stuff to hell and all this stuff. And I'm not that way. I'm a very peaceful person. And I'm a hop on your lap and kiss you kind of person, but I'm not a violence person. I'm not aggressive like that. And I had to stop. I had to go be off by myself. I didn't want anyone around me. And I just needed to talk to God. I said, what is the lesson I'm supposed to be learning from this? Why cancer? What is this about? And I heard very distinctly, I heard what my answer was to that. And I found it at the very core of my existence. It was that I needed to really state out loud and know in my heart that I wanted to be here. I did not want to leave. I was not ready. I needed to do things. And I had a laundry list of things that I wanted to accomplish in this lifetime. And I'll tell you something, the experiences I had in this cancer, first of all, I said, okay, I've got to make friends with cancer because that's the only way to get through it. I
Mhm.
can't be the enemy and I can't be mad. So I had to make friends. So I named the tumor and I named it Timmy. So it was Timmy the tumor. All right. And it was an incredible existence. It was the most difficult, rewarding thing I've ever been through. I lived by myself and I did at that time also. So I would have these treatments all day long. And by the way, it was 51 straight days of those treatments. And every single one of those days, I never had to call and ask someone for a ride. Someone showed up on my doorstep or called the night before every single day for 51 days. So I knew the universe was taking care of me. And I knew that this was all for a purpose. And the experience was incredible because I eventually had such a divine experience. Like, I can't even explain it all on here. I will explain it to my clients, whatever, but the experience was so amazing. And then that was my knowing that the universe is here for you and the universe is working on your behalf. You just got to hang in there and you got to connect and let them know that you want all this. So that's just some of the information I have to help share with people, to help them find out what is the fire in their soul.
Mhm.
What is the bliss that they want to just bliss out on for the rest of their lives? Because I have found mine now, and it's the best path. The best thing you can do for yourself is find that bliss. I just want to help people do that so badly because your bliss is going to be tied in with the beauty you've come to this earth to bring.
Mhm.
And that's, oh my gosh, I'm very passionate about this. You talk about how you people with passion and purpose. That's this kid right now. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
How old were you when you were diagnosed with cancer?
Let's see. It was 2011 I was diagnosed. So that was only what,
9 years?
9 years ago? 10 years ago. Actually, 10 years ago I was diagnosed. So I was 50. Yeah. Oh, 58. Cannot tell a lie. Yeah. I was 58.
Yeah, my grandmother had lung cancer, but they didn't find hers until she was already in stage 4, and she was in her 80s. She was 86 at the time, and so she did some treatments for a little while, but she was just like, these treatments are just going to kill me, so she just didn't do them.
I totally get what she's saying about that, because I can remember one night laying upstairs in my bed, and I needed so badly to get water, and I could not move. I could not move a limb. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't do anything, but I was so parched. I'd been laying there for about 10 hours, and I thought, well, this is either going to do me in or it's not. I don't know, because I can't move. And I don't know how eventually, I remember crawling to the bathroom to get water. I must have gotten just enough, but then I couldn't do anything else. I went back for another 10 hours. So it was tough. It's not an easy thing to go through, that's for sure.
I hope I never have to do that.
No. And for me, it was extreme because they had to treat it extremely. Mm-hmm. Because I had probably the most rapid form of it that you can have. So, but it ended up being this great lesson, and I had fantastic experiences that I will write about someday when I write my whole memoir. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's on my list. I gotta write this. People were telling me I need to write a book since I was in kindergarten.
Well, there you go. Geez, I happen to know a copy editor that could help you.
Yeah, it's
funny.
It's funny. It's like ever the problem in my life is focus. And like there's so many things that I want to do, and I totally know that you know that with your life too. That like just like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do this, and
yep.
It's hard for me to stay focused on only doing one thing.
You're singing my song. You are singing my song.
Yeah, but I also don't want to do 20 things and do them all half-assed either. So
yeah,
So I tend to go real hard on one thing for a couple months, and then I go real hard on something else for a couple months, and then
oh my gosh,
and kind of move back and forth. So
I would say that I'm exactly like that, because I also I'm taking watercolor because I love art. I just love art, and I had done watercolor 20 years ago, fell in love with it, but then got busy with all these other disasters. So I'm back to doing that now, and I want to just devote every moment of every day to it.
Mm-hmm.
I like jump into something, and I jump in wholeheartedly. So this is a really good time for me to figure out how I can devote a part of a day to something and then still do all the other things I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my challenge, is not just diving in.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm always really curious about intuition and psychic energy. And I know there's a lot of people who think it's woo woo and they don't believe in it at all.
Right.
And I told you earlier today that there's just a lot of mysticism in my mother's side of the family, especially. And my grandmother had this experience that my mom had always told me about when I was a kid. And I had never asked my grandmother if it really happened, because I didn't want her to tell me that it was bullshit, that it didn't happen, and my mom was making it up. So I just want to tell you this little story, because I'm pretty sure that my mom and my grandma and my brother are all deceased. But they're all out there, and they're around. And anytime there's anybody who has any kind of intuition or that works as a medium in any way, they show up always. And when I'm asking about them, they're like, yeah, what's up? I'm here. What do you need? That's my team. And so I want to tell you this story that my mom told me. So when my mom was 6 and her brother was 5 and their sister was 2, they went to a little pond with my grandmother, and they had a little dinghy boat, and the 3 kids were out in the boat paddling around in the middle of the pond, and my grandma's on the shore smoking cigarettes and drinking iced tea that probably had vodka in it and whatever, because this is the 50s. And my mom and her brother climbed out of the boat and swam back to shore and left the 2-year-old in the boat in the middle of the pond.
Oh my Lord.
My grandmother did not know how to swim. Why she decided to let her kids play in a boat when she did not know how to swim, I don't know, but she did.
No.
She looked up from where she's sitting, and the 2-year-old, my Aunt Lynn, is climbing over the side of the boat into the water, because she doesn't get that she doesn't know how to swim because she's a baby. My grandma jumps up, she runs across the top of the water, grabs the baby, and runs all the way back, and her cigarettes were still dry in her hand when she came back.
Oh my goodness.
And her clothes were not wet, she was not wet, the baby was wet because she grabbed her out of the water, but they were fine. And my mom and her brother were standing on the shore, staring at their mom, holding the wet baby, and being like, did you just walk on water? Did you just?
I love it.
And so my whole childhood, my mom told me this story, and I would beg her to tell it to me, because every time she'd tell it to me, I'd get goosebumps all over. It was just I really wanted to believe it, because the magic is so fun. And after my mom died, 6 years later was when my grandma got lung cancer. And I had never, ever asked her about this. We've never spoken about it. She had never told the story ever before.
Oh.
And I had never wanted to ask her, because I didn't want her to burst the bubble and be like, she just made that up. That didn't happen. And my aunt was taking care of my grandmother, and I went out to visit her, and I was like, I'm going to kick myself if I don't ask her, because I'm always going to wonder, what, if it was true or not. I got to the point where I was like, I need to know. And so I went out to visit her, and my aunt's in the kitchen, and I'm sitting there, holding her hand and talking to my grandma. And I was like, so grandma, my mom always told me this story, and I was just wondering. And she goes, hell yeah, it's true. Out of nowhere, my aunt comes running in from the kitchen, and she goes, oh, I know what you're talking about. That's totally true. Definitely true. I wouldn't be here right now if had that not been the case. Had that not happened, I would be dead. And my grandma just looks at me like stoic as hell. She's like stage 4 lung cancer, really miserable. She looks at me and she just goes, you get one of those. One. And after she had that experience in her life, she became a nurse. She learned how to swim. She was like, you get one.
You're gonna make me cry.
Get one of those. And so having her like reaffirm the ways that story is true, and like it, it's still in some ways like, in the back of my mind, like the scientific thing is like, nah, whatever, maybe there's still some of it that's not quite how they told it. And I went and did a psychic reading when I was pregnant with my first son. And part of the reading, we were allowed to write a question. We were supposed to bring photos of people that I wanted to try to communicate with. So I brought a picture of my mom, a picture of my brother, and a picture of my grandma. And you were to write a question that you wanted to ask each person on a wipe-off board, and then put it face down and keep your hands on it the whole time. So there's no way that the guy I was talking to could have read it because it was only facing.
Right.
Yeah. And the question that I wanted to ask my grandma was like, no, really, like, did it really happen? Come on, did it really happen?
Good for you. Good for you.
That's all that I wrote. Like, did it really happen? That's all I wrote. So even if he had seen it, he'd be like, whatever. And so he was saying, like, usually when he does readings, if you bring, three pictures or 3 people that you want to talk to, sometimes one of those people will show up. And as soon as I sat down at the table with my pictures, he was like, oh my God, they will not shut up. They're all here and they're all talking at the same time. And they all have different stuff to say, and they're talking to each other and they're talking to me and everybody's talking. And when
I've had that happen, it's chaos.
Yeah. And he went through my questions, and the question that I asked my mom was whether or not she could teach my baby before he was born. And he held up put her photo down in front of him, and he goes, well, she's definitely here. And she just wants to tell you that she's already teaching that baby everything she knows.
That's awesome.
And then the question, I asked if my brother ever came to visit me. And I had a couple of experiences in the week before I went to do this reading where just out of nowhere, I was like totally surrounded by a smell that like had no cause.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's always lemon pledge. Like really, really strong. Like someone had just sprayed lemon pledge on everything around me while I was like sitting at home. While I was like sitting at home. Not really, no. But so while I was like sitting at home alone, and I was like, no one is cleaning, like no one is spraying anything. It's not happening. Why do I smell lemon pledge? And like the one day I opened my closet, and inside the closet smelled like lemon pledge. I'm like, what? This is so weird. So then I said, I asked, do you ever come visit me? And he goes, well, this guy's here, and he wants you to know that when he's coming to visit you, that he gives you a weird smell, like. I was like, oh, okay. Whenever I smell lemon pledge, that's you. And then when he got to the picture of my grandmother, and he's like, well, all the people that are here right now are arguing about this third question, and they're all talking to each other and talking to me about this question. And the only thing, and he's like holding his hands over all the pictures, and he puts his hand over the picture of my mom, and he goes, she just wants to tell you, you just should have been there. Just should have been there. And
that's so fantastic, and it leads me right into what I wanted to say to you earlier, and I didn't. What got me started on the spiritual coaching, believe it or not, was from me growing up as a Methodist and having to read the Bible and do the whole scripture thing. I always read where Jesus said, you will do far greater things than these, to his disciples. So here he is, he's making the blind see, causing the lame to walk. He's doing all these phenomenal things, taking 5 loaves and 5 fishes and feeding 5,000 people, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And this piece of information was absolutely astounding to me, because I'm like, are you kidding me? We can't even do those things. You think we're going to do greater things than that? I don't think so, unless we really get moving, right? So, in one of my meditations, I'm talking away to the creator and I'm saying, you know what, creator? I'll help you any way I can, but man, we are so far behind. It's going to take a lot. And I heard and I understood very completely. Watch this, Nance. We're going to do this. And that's what got me started, because I said, you know what? If we don't all start figuring out why we came here, what our bliss is, and what our service is, we're never going to do far greater things than these. And greater things are walking on water. Greater things are being healed, boom, like that from a disease. These are the greater things we're meant to do. But what happens is we come here. When we come here, we know what we're supposed to do. We come remembering where we came from.
Mhm.
But this earthly existence makes us forget everything. And don't even kid yourself, because people here try to make you forget everything. If you come and have imaginary friends, everybody's like, don't even listen. That's an imaginary friend, honey. That's just cute stuff.
Mhm.
You get discouraged from the moment you're here. So I know from all the different experiences I've been through, and now from the directions I'm getting, that it's time for everyone to wake up. It's time to wake up to what they've been here to do. And now we're going to reawaken that. I even call part of that the retrieving of your soul contract, because it's going to bring such joy. But look what it's going to do for other people.
Yeah.
Imagine the thing. I mean, your aunt's life was saved by something that we're all supposed to be able to do. You were supposed to be able to walk on water back in the Bible times. It's developing your own personal relationship with the divine that's going to make the difference.
Mhm.
So that's why you got to remember where you're from, why you came here. What little kids remember.
Yeah.
I mean, little kids remember. And I will tell you, I said I would only tell the clients because it's so long, but I'll tell you a quick version of this. I was in for like my 35th or 40th treatment of the full day of, radiation, chemo radiation, the sandwich.
Mhm.
And it was a Monday morning. I was just starting the whole process, and I'd been through a really harrowing weekend. It was when it started weakening me, the amount of medications I was getting and stuff. And I could barely walk. I called the woman who was going to pick me up to go to the first session, and I said, I can't even get out to the car. I'm not going to be able to do it. So let's just cancel for today. And she goes, oh no, you can't cancel this stuff. This stuff doesn't get canceled. So she came to my house. She came to my front door, because usually I just met them out of the car. And like, she couldn't believe it. She had to actually put one arm over her shoulder and just sort of carry me as I moved along. She got me into the car and drove to the doctor's office, or the, infusion center, and had to run in and get a wheelchair because she knew she couldn't possibly get me from the car to there. And we got in, and I was in the wheelchair, so they brought a nurse out. She came and got me and took me in and helped me get changed and everything for the radiation treatment. And they got me in there and laid me on the radiation bed. And I said, there's no way I can put my hands back. I had to put my hands back like this and hold on to 2 bars while the radiation treatment was being given. I said, I can't. There's no energy left in me. I have nothing. And they said, well, here, we're just going to help you get your hands up there. And then they went out of the room fast because they had to take 2 extra x-rays, because I had knocked the 2 x-ray markers off on my side. So they had to take 2 extra ones to reset everything. And they came back in fast, and my hands were still up there. That was a miracle in itself. And then they went out again after they checked on me, and they got the thing set up. And all of a sudden, I'm laying there, and I'm having the actual radiation treatment now. And I look up, and there is this huge, huge, like head to the ceiling person over here on this side of me. And then there's another one over here on this side of me, and I can't move my head. I'm not allowed to move my head because I'm in treatment. And I'm just laying there, my arms are back, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? What is this? And I look, and this one over here has got their hands like this, and they're just going like this. And I heard telepathically, apparently, because their mouths didn't move, I couldn't even see their faces. I heard, we're wiping the DNA clean. No more of this stuff now. We're wiping the DNA clean. And I'm still like this. I'm like, oh my God, they're cleaning the DNA. Oh, no more cancer. Oh my God, they're cleaning it. The one over on this side, though, I'm looking like this, and he's going like this on my chest. He's taking something and he's like shooting up. I can see little black things going up in the air, and then they would look like a burst of white. Is all I could say, like an exploded white. And then another one taking it up, and another one taking it up like this. Well, all of a sudden they're gone. The radiation machine has stopped, and the nurses come in, and I'm laying there on the table thinking, oh my God, I can't wait for them to tell me what they saw, because they watch you from outside on a television screen type thing. They're not saying anything about these two beings that were in the room. Nothing. I put my hands down and I'm looking at them. I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to say anything if they're not going to say anything, because maybe I'm nuts now. Maybe this whole thing's gotten to me, right?
Yeah.
So I sit up, and I sat up on my own. They didn't help me up. I sat up and I thought, wow, I'm feeling better. Huh. So I got up and I got myself dressed, and I walked out to the waiting room. The woman who was there with me looks at me and she goes, Nancy, get back in there. You got to have your treatment. And I said, no, I'm done. Treatment's all over with. And she's like, oh my God, Nancy, it's only been 15 minutes. My treatments normally take 40 minutes with the doctor visit and all. 15 minutes it took. Okay. So she's just looking at me very strangely, like, oh, Joan, what's going on? I mean, I'm still waiting for someone to come out and tell me, well, we got to talk to you about those beings that were in your room.
Yeah, or something.
Something. Some sort of acknowledgement, because otherwise I really think I've lost it at this point. And Joan says, Nancy, she said, before we get going, I got to talk to you about something. I said, what? And she said, well, as soon as you went in, I heard very clearly start sending her Reiki. I said, Joan, I didn't even know you knew what Reiki was. She goes, yeah. She said, I took Reiki 1 and 2 about 30 years ago. She says, so I closed my book. I didn't even get through the first page. And I started sending you Reiki. She said, and she said, I had the craziest thing happen. She said, I had this vision of somebody holding their hands up like this. And there was like a white lung, just a white lung, all like clean. This tears start gathering in my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, this is my confirmation. I'm not nuts, right?
You're like,
and I'm just
looking
looking
at
at
we're both nuts.
And she's looking at me and she said, Nance, and I said, I said, I can't even tell you. I mean, that's what was happening. And I'm stuttering and I can't even get it out. And I said, that's what just happened in there. I said, there was an angel, Joan. There was an angel on this side of me, and the angel showed me and was wiping the DNA clean. And and I'm stuttering and carrying on. And the two of us just started crying right in the waiting room, and the other people are listening, and they're kind of like, wow, what the heck is going on?
How do I get me one of those?
She just said, this was so unbelievable. She's just looking at me and she says, then I had something really weird happen, but I'm not even going to tell you because it's like too crazy to even bring up here. And I said, no, go ahead and tell me, because if she tells me what I saw, then I'm going to know for sure that this universe is way bigger than we ever thought it was and full of great stuff. She goes, yeah. She said, it was kind of stupid. She said, I just kept seeing these little black bits flying up in the air. That's all. They had to sit me down. I was in such a state. I think I was like in shock,
Mm-hmm.
because that confirmed everything. I said, that's exactly what that angel was doing. Cleaning the black bits out from the chemo and radiation and just sending them up. And that was the day the doctor told me, he says, I think you're done. I think your x-rays come out so beautifully. We'll do the last couple treatments, but I think you're done.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome. Oh my God, Nancy, I have so many stories I want to tell you.
We'll have to do them another day. I can't
know,
believe
we're going to have like a special, like, weird shit edition of the the Reach the Stars podcast, where we only just talk about like the weird shit, because there's a lot of weird shit that has happened in my life. And like some people call it God, some people call it energy or the higher power or whatever. But like to me, I think like a way that's really accessible for a lot of people who are kind of resistant to like woo-woo things or religion in general. Like for me, it's like, I don't necessarily believe there's some dude in robes in the sky, but there's weird shit out there. There's weird shit out there. Like I can't explain it. It's happened to me. It's happened in my family. And for me personally, like same thing. Like when my mom would tell me those stories when I was a kid, like I love the magic of it. And I think for anyone out there, like whether you believe in it or not, believing in it is a choice. And if believing in it makes being alive better, and it makes your existence here on Earth better, if it makes it easier to deal with things that are really hard, then why not believe in it? Because
and the one thing that I hear is
if when you die there's nothing, and then
what I'm hearing, well, you know that when you die there's something, or else you wouldn't be hearing from your brother and smelling lemon pledge.
It's not exactly, it's not what I believe, but there's who's here knows exactly what is for sure what's there, and if you do come back and whatever in the same form or what. Do I believe that a body that looks like this is going to come back and live another life? No, not exactly. But the energy that is making me live right now has made millions and billions of other things live for centuries and centuries. Like it's all the same energy. It just recombines in different ways and different combinations. And like, part of me like has been raindrops, and part of me has been stars, and part of me has been animals and millions of
I believe that very much. But I think the core thing for me is I don't care what name you put on it, whether you say it's God, whether you say it's energy. I mean, it all means the same to me. What really is the core thing for me is that it's love. It's love that's doing all this. It's pure love that creates that kind of frequency, that kind of vibration that can manifest these things. And to me, the name for pure love is God, because that's what I learned growing up. The name for pure love for other people is Muhammad. It's this, it's that, There's many paths up the mountain, whatever path you choose to follow.
As my mom used to say, it's all the same story. They just change the names. All the big holy books it's all the same stories, just with different names.
And to me, if you're getting people to a point where they're believing and they're really and truly understanding that their energy can change like 1,000 people around them, it can change their lives. It can lift them up. It can put them in a better frame of mind, so to speak, to take care of what's coming at them on this human level. Then have you not done the job you've come here to do?
Exactly.
We've come here to do good for each other.
One of the reasons that I started this podcast in the first place was to have a space where all of these amazing stories from people who have had crazy experiences, have overcome things that seem like it was not possible to come back from that or to survive that, and that they did. And that because they survived those things, look at all these beautiful things that they have done with their lives, and ways that they have touched so many people and have affected change all over the place. I mean, I've been working with this business coach, Terry Maxwell. She is amazing, by the way. She's like the coolest thing ever. And she has been doing this prosperity challenge, which is a lot about like visualizing your intuition and like picturing what you want to happen before it happens. And I just keep getting these like vibes from working with her. And one of the exercises that she did was figuring out ways to find your kind of like your soul purpose, it's a 2-word.
That's what I'm talking about. Yep.
It's like this thing and this thing, and those things go together, and that's what you're here to do. And so that's this whole exercise that you go through, like thinking of like, these are things that you're good at, these are things you enjoy and whatever. And you distill it down to like the core of what your meaning is. And one of the words is an action word for what you want to do, and the other one is like one is more concrete than the other. And so after doing this exercise with her, it distills it all down that like the 2 words for me is inspire change. Those are my words.
Isn't that awesome?
That's all I want to do is like inspire that change, to inspire those magical life transformative moments. Cause it's always one moment,
Well,
where like somebody has a moment and then they're different.
Yeah.
After that.
And that's why we have connected. And I think your audience should know and see this too. The name of your podcast is Reach for the Stars.
Yep, Reach the Stars.
That was the name of my initial business 20 years ago. And these are the earrings I wore for this, because my whole motto has been reach for the stars, reach for the moon. Even if you miss, you land among the stars.
And it's really funny because I have this tattoo on my arm of Matilda, who could move things with her eyes. She was connected with the energy, but she's riding on this shooting star that goes all the way around my arm. And I got this at the same time that I came up with my business, came up with the name Reach for the Stars. That was the first part of it. It was Reach for the Stars and then Papercraft Miracles. And so when I came up with the name for this podcast, Reach for the Stars ... and Smile was already the name of somebody's podcast that they did like 6 years ago. They stopped doing it. So rather than like try to get her to delete all of her online presence for that, I was like, screw it. I'll just do Reach the Stars, because I'm like, I'm not trying to reach for them. I'm going to reach them. Reach the stars. We're doing it.
Reach the stars.
It's more of an active phrase, and it wasn't taken. So Reach the Stars podcast. But I got this for the sole purpose, because I was like, I want to be that person that reaches for what I love and believe that making a life for myself out of things that fulfill me is doable. But it's not doable if you don't go for it, you know? So I was like, I got to reach for the stars, but you have to be careful, because if you miss, it's a really long way to fall. However, if you actually catch it, that ride is going to be a whole lot hotter and a whole lot faster than you ever thought it was going to be. And
see, I'm taking the easy way. I'm reaching for the moon. Even if you miss, you land among the stars. So either way, I'm going to win.
Oh, I'm totally like, I'm on that star, and it's like, you know, like, and I'm along for the ride. I'm going for it, because that's just, there are definitely like bigger things for me. I know that. I'm like, as soon as
I think that's probably who you're going to attract to this. Like, you're going to attract the people to this who know that there's way more to this life than what we've been living.
Mm-hmm.
There's way more. And I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about, having the biggest cruiser on the lake or nothing like that. What I'm talking about is like really huge differences we can make.
Yeah.
Like
inspiring.
Equalizing this planet. No one hungry again. All babies taken care of beautifully. Just like there's so much to be done here, and we're the ones to do it.
Yeah. The new normal, right?
Yes, the new normal.
Writing some poems about the new normal. So before we run out of time again today,
for our second time,
at the end of all the podcasts, I ask all the guests the same 5 questions so that everyone can hear the different take that people have on the same questions. So, the first one, which I'm pretty sure you already answered, but you can pick a different one, is tell me about an experience that shaped who you are today. Like one of those, like, because that one moment happened, bink, things are different.
Okay. Okay, I can tell you what mine was. I started writing for the Buffalo News, and they asked me to do a feature on fear of flying. So in order to do that, I had to go out and interview some people. And one of the women that I interviewed said, you know what? She said, I know what would help you a lot. There's a tape that a doctor made for me, but then he also told me to go to this place called the Meeting House in Williamsville every Wednesday night, every first Wednesday night. And there's a group there that will help you learn how to meditate. So I was scared to death. I'd always heard that meditation was like, woo-woo stuff, and you don't do that and this and that. But I was intrigued too, because I've always been intrigued about all these things. So I decided, well, it's part of my assignment. I guess I can go, right?
Yeah.
So I went to this thing. That was the day that changed my life completely. I meditated and I went straight to the angelic plane the very first night. And I knew, this is why I've been so different all my life. This is where I'm meant to be.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
And that was the start of all this.
That's so cool. Oh, I love it. Okay. So
Thank you.
number 2, when you feel defeated or overcome, what do you tell yourself to keep going?
There's a lesson in this. I always tell myself that, and I always find it. Yep.
Oh my God. Remind me someday that I have to tell you about there's a lesson in this story, because, oh my God.
Okay.
So number 3, tell me about a way that you overcame a failure or mistake and what you learned from it.
Okay. I guess I kind of feel that way about, this is big time stuff. I can't believe I'm saying this. I feel that way about divorcing, that I had been married for 24 years when I finally decided, no, I'm no longer me. I have to get out on my own and do this somehow. I had no job and I had a lot of panic disorder, and I still had to do it. And it was really by faith alone that I got anything done, because I mean, who could possibly go out on their own without a job and with scared to death to be alone? And I did it, and I was walked through every day, every step of the way, by these really crazy, super weird shit things you're talking about. That's just what happened on every day. Matter of fact, I have my first short story I ever wrote was called The Nightlight. And it was about what guided me through this whole thing was I had this broken old nightlight in my old house. And the first day I was alone all by myself after the divorce, that nightlight started blinking. Well, it hadn't blinked in about 3 years, but I just hadn't bothered taking it off, taking it out of the plug. And it blinked all the way through till I went to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, it wasn't blinking anymore. The next night I got up to my bedroom and I was scared, still scared, and crying because I didn't know how I was going to get through all this. And I go lay down and the thing starts blinking again. And it's blinking and it's blinking and it's blinking. And I'm watching this thing, with my eyes wide open as much as I can until I fall asleep. And next morning I woke up and I said, geez, I made it through a second night. Well, this happened every single night until I became so sure I was going to see it that I wasn't afraid to go upstairs anymore. But I would still see it. And then one day my brother came to visit me, and it was crazy. We got upstairs. It was the middle of the daytime, and this thing went nuts. It's blinking like crazy and blinking like crazy. And I knew why, because the night before, a couple nights before, I had fallen right near this thing, and I looked at it very closely. And it was a tall angel and a short angel. The tall angel was like a light brunette colored hair, and the small angel was blonde. It was my mother and I. And one of my mother's favorite people on earth was my little brother. So when he came to visit, it was like, wong, 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 wong. She was seeing us both. So I knew that's what that was about.
That is so cool. I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay, number 4. What one trait or habit is most responsible for keeping you on track?
Meditation. No doubt. No doubt about
it. Okay, number 5. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten, and what advice would you give to others?
Okay, best piece of advice I've ever gotten. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to come up with one really fast or that I've ever given. I guess that I've ever gotten is, it's kind of tied up in this quote that I use all the time now. Mm-hmm. It's like, so tell me, what do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So that's what I tell people to think about now. That to me is like giving advice, because I don't actually give them advice. I give them the thought that'll lead them to what they want to do. So that's how I look at advice, I guess.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Aw.
That's by Mary Oliver. It was in a poem she wrote.
I love Mary Oliver. My friend who's also been interviewed on here, she's a yoga teacher, and she often starts her class reading some Mary Oliver. It's really great.
Yep, I love Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver and Rumi are like on a par for me.
Rumi. I have
people. They're my people.
The Rumi book on my nightstand.
Yeah. I love it.
Aw. Well, yeah. I could talk to you all day, Nancy. We definitely need to do another episode in the future. The weird episode. I'm all about it.
Yeah, that would be great. And I've really enjoyed my time with you today. Both times.
I know. Thank you so much for all your listening and wisdom earlier today too. And
absolutely. I'm honored. Thank you.
If I send you any more messages about where my thing is that I need to find, you let me know.
You bet. But right now I'm telling you, it's a joke.
They're fucking with me. Well, thank you so much. Can you tell everyone where they can find you on the internet? You got a website?
I do actually. It's just www.nancyeckerson.com, and that'll tell you all about the different businesses I'm doing. Because you can get to Classy Cupid from there, which is writing letters for people who just don't. That's not their shining moment in life, And it'll tell you about everything I'm doing.
Cool. Well, I will also be linked in the show notes. So thanks everyone for listening and watching the Reach the Stars podcast. I am your host, Jonna Willoughby Lohr. You can write us a review either on iTunes and on Spotify and in all the places where reviews happen. And if you would like to check us out on Patreon and help support this podcast in our mission, it's patreon.com/reachthestars. We have a bunch of different tiers. We have a private Facebook group that we have for all the people who've been guests on the show and for all the patrons to kind of communicate with each other and share stories and ask questions. And there's all sorts of other fun perks and stuff like that. So if you feel so inclined to back us as a patron, we would love to have you to help offset the costs of making this dream of mine happen out into the world. So thank you all.
It's a noble dream, and I thank you for the honor of being here.
Oh, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
A single interaction has the power to change your life forever. This is a place for the stories of those moments. Stories of pursuing dreams, overcoming tragedy and failure, of coming back to life after so much of what feels like dying, of continuing on with only a vision as a map. This is the place where those moments live on. Come sit by the fire, look up at the stars, and be forever changed too.
Thank you for being with us on the Reach the Stars podcast. Our theme music is generously provided by Byrocratic. You can find him on bandcamp.com. Thank you to all of our current patrons, guests, and everyone else who helps make this dream a reality. We are so proud to be building this amazing community with all of you. If you love this podcast, please consider sharing with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes, and becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/reachthestars. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the videos of these conversations. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, do something cool and tell us about it.